Okay, so let's continue. So we have this figure. We saw it earlier in the slides as well, in the beginning, in the history and showcase. And we'd like to know how to produce a figure like this. So it has the actual figure showing something, then it has the figure caption, which consists of the figure title, and usually it's numbered in a document. It's not in slides. And then we have the actual text caption, which describes the figure. So it's standard to have this. You should always have this in a document. If you include a picture or something, you should have a figure caption describing what is the figure showing, what am I supposed to see? And then you should also reference it from the text. So let's see how we can achieve this in Tech. So the code that we need is, first of all, we need a package, graphics. This allows us to use the include graphics command, which allows us to read standard pictures like JPEGs or PNGs, something like that. And otherwise, we need to produce a figure using the figure environment. So begin figure and it ends by end figure. And usually we'd like to center the figure inside here, but that depends on the layout and style of the document class. But some actually modify figure to automatically do the centering, and others don't. So leave it up to the authors. So in this case, I added the centering here just to get it centered. And then we have the caption command, which is the text that we saw describing the figure. And finally, we have a label command, which gives us something to reference this figure by in the text. So let's try this in our document. So let's open the example here again. So let's see, we wanted to add here in the preamble, in the top of the document, use package graphics, save, and let's go to the bottom of the text. So we had our section maths. Let's add a section figures and tables. So this is the data section. Let's call it data then. Data. Okay, so we have captured some data. We visualized it in this figure. We'll get back to what figure that should be. So let's begin a figure here. And we wanted to center this. We want to include graphics. Let's finish that line later and caption some nice figure, very bad description here. And then we do a label and we name it our fig. So let's complete this figure in a bit. Now we can change this. We visualized it in this figure, and instead of this figure, we will type ref our fig. We can type here to figure and then ref our fig. So let's see. We want to complete this include graphics command, and we want to add some kind of figure. So we need to download a picture. So let's see if we can get back to Firefox. And let's download a picture. This one looks very nice. So let's see if we can save that picture. Copy image link. That's the only thing I can do. Okay, let's do it like this. And then let's save it. And then let's go to home and oops, we went to documents and example doc. So bg_logo, we can rename it to bg. Saved it and let's close it. Let's see how this one turns out. So we want to specify the width, and yeah, that one was I think 2 centimeters would be sufficient. We can try and see what happens if it looks good. And then we had bg.gif. So let's see if this works. So save and let's compile. Okay, so the include graphics package complains that, hey, this is an unknown graphics extension, so it can't handle GIF images. Too bad. Then we have to find another figure. So let's take the Libris logotype. Save image as. That's also a GIF. That's really bad. Let's go to Google and get a cat picture. So shall we take this one maybe? Then we save, not the link. Let's save the picture. Cat, and we are in the example doc directory, so save it there. Then we can close it and go back here. So we see here we have a lot of files generated. So LaTeX generates a lot of files when it compiles. So we see that we have our example.tex, that's the only file we care about, that one, and literature.bib. The other ones are generated by LaTeX, so we can ignore them and remove them later. But we have our image here too, cat.jpg, and that's a JPEG. That one should for sure work. So let's change the file name to cat.jpg. Was it JPEG? No, it had an E, of course. Save and exit. And let's recompile and see what happens. Let's hope it works now with the JPEG extension. So see, we got some data. We visualized it in figure ? And then it updated. So let's scroll down. So we see here we have figure 1, some nice figure. Yes, it's our cat. Everyone appreciates cat pictures. And then we have data here, and we have our sentence. We captured some data. We visualized it in figure 1. So now it has actually updated. So this is another time where we need to recompile several times to get the numbers correct. But we see here that in our code, we actually wrote the text, and then we had a figure below it. But here in the PDF, the figure is on top of the page here. And that's because LaTeX is a typesetting system, which is different from word processors, which put stuff where you put them, usually. So LaTeX, it actually knows what is good typesetting. So it will put the figure where it's suitable to put it, considering the rest of the text. And then you can reference the figure from the text, and then you know that when you read this, oh, I should look at figure 1, and then you find figure 1, which is usually somewhere on the page, easy to find. So usually figures are placed at either the top of the page or at the bottom of the page, depending on what is suitable. And sometimes, if the figure is big enough, it might get its own page completely. So just trust in LaTeX. When you deal with figures, it will put them where they are suitable to have. You don't have to bother about it. So one less decision for you to make. That's nice. I appreciate that at least. So let's get back to the slides and see what else we can do. We have tables. So this sometimes we want to produce tables, and yeah, we have our section data. So maybe we should add a table there too with some data in it. So the code to generate this table here looks like this. So it's a lot to type. I'm not going to type all of that into our document. I'll make a smaller table. But the principle is that it starts with the begin table here and ends with an end table. Then it has the centering. And you can see here we have the same caption and we have the label as well. So these are exactly the same as the figure, except it's called table instead of figure. Then the design of the actual table, that comes in another environment called tabular. And here you have to specify in an option here, you have to specify how each cell should be aligned. And in this case, I have the first cell right aligned and the others are centered aligned. So if we go back here, we can actually see that, yes, these are indeed right aligned. So they are aligned on this edge, whereas all these are centered. So you can specify how you want it to be aligned there. You have to specify it actually, and to specify each cell. So that's how each row should look like. So let's type away in our document. So we've captured some data. We visualized it in figure this. We also provide a table in table ref. Let's call it our table. And then we can go down here and let's add our table here. And then we have the begin tabular, end tabular. We have the caption, a very detailed table, which is a very bad caption, but we use it for this example. And we decided we want to call it our table in the label. Okay, so let's get to the actual table. So I want to have something right aligned, then centered aligned, and then left aligned, just for the sake of it. And then we have, we can see in the code there, we have this top rule and bottom rule. So I want a top rule here and a bottom rule at the bottom. And these actually require the package book tab. So instead of running into an error, we might just as well add the package now. We have learned to read the error messages. So let's go back down to our table. Here we are. And we would like to have a heading. So we can add text bold font. So we want it to be bold fonted. And then let's just call it right. And then it's the same as in the array. We use an ampersand to separate them. And then we have the center, and finally the left. And then we use this to break the line, and then we can add a mid rule just to have a rule. So what do we want to add in these places? Well, we can write ABC here, DEF here, and GHI, just for the fun of it. So let's save and try to compile. I typed that one wrongly, of course, so we didn't avoid the error messages. So let's end that one. I pressed Control D since it asks for input. If you press Control D, we remember it closes standard input, which means the program will just continue. So book tabs. Let's recompile and see if it works better. It does indeed. So we can see now in our PDF, we have a table also added to the top of the page, although we added it below. So same thing applies to tables as well. And then we have right, center, left, and we see that this one is right aligned, this one is center aligned, and this one is left aligned. So now we have nicely visualized that as well. Okay, so let's continue to see what else we can do. So you saw that we typed in the code, we saw that we typed table and then ref, and then the label that we used. So there is another package which is very nice that we can add, and that one is called cleverref. And this one, it is actually quite clever because it keeps track of what the label is actually referring to. So we don't have to write out table and figure. Actually, we can just use cref instead, and then cref will print the proper title if it's figure or table, and or if it should be in Swedish and say tabell instead of table, for instance. So it's very useful. So let's adapt our example to that. So use package cleverref, and note there's only one R in this package name. So let's go down to the bottom. Let's update our code. So instead of having figure here, we have ref, and we replace that by cref. And we do the same with the table here. We remove there and just have cref. So now we don't say if it's a figure or if it's a table here. Let's save, exit, and recompile. See that the PDF is updated, and now it's question marks there, and then it recompiled again. So now we see that it has actually put the figure names here. So it says actually FIG1, which is a common abbreviation to use, but it writes table 1, which is the common thing to do. And these can be, of course, configured using settings by supplying options to the cleverref package.